Here on Rules for Retrogrades, you know I've come to actually hate having to do shows on Pope Francis's skullduggery, but that's necessary. That's part of the platform. I like bringing you guys positive content. Whenever it's a Francis show, it's negative content. Today's show is called Many Meetings, which is a Tolkien chapter out of the trilogy. So I thought it very fit because he met this morning with Monsignor Giles Walk, co-founder and prior general of the traditional community, the Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priest. No further details, according to Michael Haynes, have emerged from the meeting yet. But you know it's probably not good. There's been saber rattling the last 2 weeks about more of a direct sustained attack on the TLM. ICKSP, of course, is one of the small handful of Latin Mass only congregations. So they had this meeting and no details have yet emerged, but I want to speculate a little bit. Also, a little under a week ago, midweek last week, Pope Francis's C9 Council of Cardinals, his closest consultators, concluded their 2-day meeting at the Vatican, according also to Michael Haynes, during which they again discussed the role of women in the church. Remember what's going on. This is the summer and the run-up to the October 24 Synod on Synodality, where they basically promised they're going to do a non-sacramental women diaconate. An Anglican female prelate spoke at the C9 meeting in February on the topic also, and we've heard from her a few different times. I can do a fast translation of the document they released. There's another meeting that took place a little bit before that. I don't really care about this. This is from like the 8th of June. Francis announced that he met at the Vatican with comedians from around the world on the 14th. U.S. comedians attending include Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, Jim Gaffigan, Whoopi Goldberg, James Martin. We don't mean James Martin, Slim Jim Martin, you naughty thing. SJ, we mean James Martin. Tig Notaro, Chris Rock, Conan O'Brien. The Vatican issued a statement. So we'll take these 3 kind of paradigm examples of who Francis meets with and why. I think the 3 taken together show something, evince something telling about the Francis pontificate. And it's hard to say anything useful or original at this point, 11 years in. I think this show still manages to do that. I mean, we talked about Archbishop Vigano last week. I gave the analysis that's typical of this show. We're sympathetic to the message. I don't get the brashness, the certitude. I'll tell you things when I'm certain, but I don't know Vatican II is a bum council. I don't know Francis is a fake pope. These things seem like, oh, maybe they could be. I don't know. I'm not going to go with them, though. Kind of pass Gallian wager, applying it to ecclesiology. So the meetings of Francis give us an insight into what's going on, even to unrelated topics like Vigano or Synod on Synodality or the China deal. Now, the first meeting I want to talk to you about is this meeting this morning with Monsignor Giles Walk, co-founder prior general of the traditional community of ICKSP. We don't know exactly what they said yet. We know that it's Francis, the vindictive, taking on the TLM. It's been 3 summers since he released Traditionis Custodes. He hates the Latin Mass and he hates the people that it's for, by and for. No news there. I know everyone wanted me to do a show on the saber rattling of the last 10 days, and I'm like, look, there's nothing new to say. But here's what I know. He's going to move forward with a more clear, less ambiguous, more aggressive, less passive-aggressive program of basically taking apart the Latin Mass. And you guys know that too. But it's important to see, again, who he considers an enemy, who he calls in as an enemy. Monsignor Giles Walk, he's one of the rigids that Francis doesn't like. We know Vigano, obviously. We know Monsignor Strickland, obviously. We know outgoing CDF. A couple outgoing CDFs are considered enemies by him. Cardinal Ladaria, Cardinal Mueller. We don't know what he's going to do with Cardinal Burke. And that's interesting because at one point he was enemy number one of Francis. But Francis always has his mind on two things, evidently. Don't forget this. Advancing the subversive agenda. So pushing female deacons, which we're going to talk about in a second, and taking out his opponents. Procedurally, the left is very good at what they're supposed to be doing. Push your agenda, permanently disable the opponent's agenda. And that's what he's doing. And he's the perfect man for the job because he's naturally vindictive. Subversives who get into power and aren't naturally vindictive, they're like, all right, I'm going to push our agenda. I don't know if I really need to be mean to all our enemies. And so they're only doing half the job. There's offense, pushing your agenda, and defense, permanently disabling the Monsignor Walks of the world. He's doing both. He's a two-way player, as we say in basketball. Good at offense, which most NBA stars are good offensive players. He's also good at defense. Okay, this brings me to the meeting that Francis had 5.5 days ago with the C9. The Council of Cardinals concluded their 2-day meeting at the Vatican, during which they again discussed the role of women in the church. An Anglican female prelate spoke at the C9 meeting in February on this topic also. They also discussed safeguarding. Now, the demonstration was made by Sister Linda Pocher, Pocher. We've heard from her for 3 years in the Synod on Synodality. This is from June the 18th. Communication from Sala della Santa Sede, Circa della Riunione of the Council of Cardinals. The 17th and 18th of June was held the session of the Council of Cardinals at the Casa Santa Marta. The following were present with the Pope, the Cardinals, any of whom have a part in the Secretary of the Council. They're going to get to naming them. I was doing that when I was hacking up along. The 17th, the reflection on the feminine role in the church, leaving from the presentation of 3 women. The afternoon opened with an introduction of Sister Linda Pocher. Sorry, less than perfect translation. Seguita Dali. Following from the interventions, Following from the interventions of Valentina Rotondi, Professoressa, I like that they have the S on there, at blah, 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 in the department, Newfield College, Oxford. Donata Horak, teacher of canonical right in the Alberoni University, affiliated with the Pontifical University of Angelicum, where I took classes. Thomistic university, right in the center of the universities, 7 Pontifical universities in Rome. Now, Linda Pocher, has been involved in every stage of the Synod on Synodalities. So, she was in that regional diocesan stage. She kept making presentations. The name sticks out. She's at the next stage. She's at the final stage. So she plays some sort of important role. More than that, it's probably just they like what she's saying. Remember, the rule of Francis is he finds someone that says something he wants to say and says it decently, and then he keeps going back to him until they say something else. So I could read you more about what they presented here.
Could you? Can you?
Can you though? It's basically what we expect. The women need to have a heightened role in the church. Francis acknowledges this. The Council of Nine Cardinals acknowledge this. And the Synod on Synodality will address it. Acknowledge, address. Francis knows it. If we're given the parliamentary model, he's the monarch. The Council of Cardinals are with him, and together they will address it. So remember, just so you don't forget. Remember so you don't forget. They're going to do women deacons that are non-ordained. Women deacons that are non-sacramental. I told you this. September the 30th and October the 2nd, in 2 consecutive shows before, I think the day before, the Synod on Synodality opened in October 2023. People said, you're crazy. People said, how do you purport to know this? What else did they say then? They hadn't given any indication if this is how it would go. I'm just judging Francis based on 2014, 2015 twin family synods plus Amoris Laetitia. Sorry, this cold is fogging up my brain. That's the Francis model. I applied the tricks that he ran in the Extraordinary Synod, October 2014, the finaglings over the next year, the Ordinary Synod, October 2015, he made some changes. He had his main lieutenants saying, oh, I'm out. I'm not going to be, or, Francis no longer favors me. Francis isn't going to do this. Francis is going to do that. Then he confused the hell out of everyone. A year apart, went silent. 6 months later, releases Amoris Laetitia. He'd gone to communion for divorce and remarried, away from it, back to it, in a vague way. 6 months after April 2016, in September, October, he institutionalizes the letter by the Buenos Aires bishops saying, yes, this is what we're doing. It's exactly what he's done with female deacons, longer timeline. And Linda Pocher seems to be the lady who's making these presentations that he likes the most. So, then Francis had met with, on the 14th, whatever that is, a little over a week ago, all these goofballs, all these clowns. Colbert, Fallon, Gaffigan, Goldberg, James Martin, Notaro, Chris Rock, Conan O'Brien. He's got a bread and circuses program. So he meets with them. There's a Vatican statement about it, saying that Francis will meet with the protagonists of the field of comedy from various parts of the world. The audience will be held in the Apostolic Palace, 8:30 a.m., Friday, June 14th. The event aims to establish a link between the Catholic Church and comic artists.
Very important work.
Yeah, important work. It's bread and circuses, too.
Were we just saying the other day that the Vatican isn't collaborating enough with American comics?
I was saying that on June the 13th.
I remember writing about it.
Like, why aren't there more clown shows coming out of the Vatican? No one said that. Everyone's like, this is weird. The weirdest time ever to be alive. Where parish orphans and retrogrades, you and I live. It's just normal, a little normal to us. We're talking about aliens, fake aliens, UFOs, Nephilim today at lunch. And we are just saying, this is The weirdest time ever to be alive, because remember the CIA, I think it was Alan Dulles, one of the big head honchos in the early CIA, said that the goal of the CIA is to make it so that in late 20th century and early 21st century American life, the average American doesn't know fact from fiction, a real conspiracy from a fake conspiracy. They won't be able to tell which way is true north, which way's up. And they went and they did it. And this is the funny thing with aliens. It's the funny thing with presidential elections. And it's a funny thing with this pontificate. You don't know what's real. This is basically an adapted John Paul Sartre line. In an age of absurdity, drama dies. Melodrama dies. Comedy is all that remains, because it's the banality of the absurd, which all people can make sense of.